Connor busted me setting up our new planted tank system. Right now we're running the fluval stratum, which is why it's so cloudy right now. All we're gonna do is keep a simple sponge filter in here and a Ceche power head. It's their little nano version. Hopefully here by the time Thursday, Friday when the plants get here, it'll all be cleaned up. Come check it out. All right guys, it's a few days later. Tanks have cleared up a whole lot. We've got our plant order in. Let's get them in and see what we got. Floaters, Salvini. These are the Apongigeton. Excellent pond plant. Interesting leaf structure. I believe this is another one, just a smaller variety. That or they just ship the small ones. We'll find out. Looks like we got a bunch of Anubias in. Really can't tell right now. Looks like Costifolia. That might be some Nana Petite right here. Just confirmed that that is not Nana Petite. It's actually a Nana Gold. Same type of plant. It has a brighter green to it. Almost has that golden hue. Not something you see too often. Now with these, you've got your root structure that we're gonna bury. Right here, you got your rhizome. That we want to try to keep out of the water. A lot of times if we do bury this right here will all rot and decay. And then it'll kill your plant, but we won't know why. Well, that is a majority of the reason right there. There you go. These plants right here, because they are the way they are with the rhizome, they are excellent for if you want to spruce up some driftwood, or especially something like the dragonstone or ceru stone. You can take the rhizome, put a little thing of super glue or the Seachem concrete and just do a hair of it, and you can stuff that rhizome in a crack, plant on top, give it a few months, it'll start to grow out. You'll never know it's been glued to that object, and the roots will actually grab a hold of it. It's an excellent time to mention that the substrate we're using is the fluval stratum. It's pretty much baked dirt, has all the nutrients and stuff in it. Think of it like Miracle Grow for your aquarium. You can start out with this and it'll make life a little easier. It will buffer your pH a little lower. The good part about it is you don't have to use root tabs or anything like that, because all the nutrients is in the soil, and you can get a few years out of it compared to on the root tabs, depending on how many plants you have tapping into it. I mean, you could have to add those almost once a month. So right here we've got something that's really cool. I haven't seen this in years. St. Elmo's Fire Sword. Good song. But that one section right there will throw off baby plants that you can rip off and replant. So the next plant on our list is a hygrophila plant. They're calling it the green temple, or temple green. I didn't believe them at first, but then I seen the flowers on them, which tells me the plant was immersed grown and not submerged grown. So when they go through on these farms and they grow them for us, they pretty much have them in big water troughs to where the roots and stuff are obviously submerged in the water, but the plants and everything are growing up. So let us come through with the big machines, clip the tops of them, and then they just continue to grow. When they switch over to the submerged growth, they can change leaf structures. They look completely different. So when you see this here in a couple days and it looks different, that's gonna be why. So up next we've got jungle val, another low light plant. Really interesting plant too, because this thing will grow pretty much as tall as you let it. It'll grow 3 to 4 foot. So when it hits the surface of your tank, it'll actually end up curving over and just taking over in the direction of flow. You've got your root mass, and then right here where it starts to grow, you've got your crown. Ideally, when we go to plant these, we're going to have the roots down, and we're going to have just the tip of this crown covering in the substrate, and the rest will be on its own growing. So right here we have another species of val. It's just the narrow leaf dwarf version. Still gets pretty tall despite the name, and as far as care and everything, all the same stuff. Lower light, doesn't really need a lot, just as long as you don't plant it too deep, you'll be good to go. So with these, when you get them planted, the way they reproduce is sending runners. And as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them right there. And they'll just sit in there, and just every so often they'll pop up a new plant. As much as this looks identical to that dwarf we just planted, this is a chain sword. Another one of the easier to plant or easier to keep low light plants that you can have in your tank. So right here we got giant hairgrass. This is going to be one of the more interesting plants that we have. It is more of the high-tech, high light. Not that you need it, but you do need the higher light. The CO2 is the optional part with this. There's another plant coming up that's going to be about the same way. You can grow it with high light. It's a slow grower, slow spreader, but it is definitely an interesting one to have to break up the normal leaf colors. And it has that interesting kind of yellow fade up to green. Just a really different and interesting plant. So right here, to keep on the same trend with the hairgrass, we have Monte Carlo. One of my favorite plants. Excellent carpeting plant. It's not one of those things where you need to have CO2, but it does make it a lot easier. It grows a lot faster with that. A higher light is a great thing to have, because with this, the low light, it'll grow higher to get to light and then start spreading out. If you have that higher light, it'll stay shorter and then just start sending the runners out. We've got Cryptocorin one deadeye. We have both a bronze and a green color. Excellent low light plant. Pretty much room light and your ceiling fan would grow these. Kind of medium sized plant. They grow really bushy. Kind of like a hedge would outside of your house. Fun plant, easy to plant. They're so versatile with everything you can do with them. Alright, so now that all of our plants are in, we've got them planted, and this is what happens when you do plant the tanks. You're going to kick the stuff up. It's going to be dirty for a little bit. Don't worry about it. Give it an hour or two, maybe a little bit longer like us, because we do have that fluval stratum. It'll settle eventually though. Alright, so we've seen the aftermath of us planting, how it's all dirty. This has settled down a lot now. The care for all these low light, low tech plants that are going to be on, well, our dry goods side of the store, they're all relatively the same. Nothing individually on these plants are going to be different than anything else you would get. A simple light. A lot of the stuff you get with like the 10-gallon tanks we have for $64 right now. Anything in here they should be able to grow. I'd be a little worried about like the glow light tank. It probably doesn't have enough light to grow it. Really simple. You feed the fish feed the plants. Everything in this big tank right here with that low light setup, they're going to be water column feeders. They're going to be pulling the nutrients from the actual body of water, not from your substrate. When we get over and we start showing you the anubias and the crypts, things like that, they're actually going to be pulling a lot of their nutrients from your substrate themselves. And that's why we end up trying to suggest things like root tabs, because it'll make those plants really happy. So this is what I have to deal with on an every other day basis. It's our chemicals to help get our plants looking as good as they do. It's all different types of fertilizers, and each one of them has a different means for why they're used. Everything I'm about to do now, everything I'm about to talk about, you guys are going to see, is everything on a big scale for what we have to do to keep these things going here. This right here is Seachem's Fundamentals Pack. It comes with your Flourish, it comes with the Excel, it comes with the Iron, and it's a nice way to see if fertilizing is right for you. It gives you about 2 months worth of being able to use it. Just a nice way to get into it, to see if it works. Your plants will love it and they'll thank you for it. Right here, we've got Flourish. It's a nitrogen base. This will help promote the growth. It's pretty much your staple fertilizer. And this is the biggest thing will end up being used, and we'll show you how we use it. So on this, it's 1 capful for every 60 gallons, just because it's the industrial size. And just like when you've seen us planting, give it a minute, that'll clear out. While we're at it, because I have no fish in here, I might as well hit these two now, because there's nothing to give them the waste. At your tank at home, with our low light stuff, our low tech, you won't have to do this, because you feeding the fish is going to feed the plants. Alright, so up next is going to be the Iron. This one's going to be really important for your reds, your purples, all your colors. This helps bring them out. A lot of that has to do with the light. Like on your Renekii and stuff, they will benefit from this. But if you do have that little bit higher light, you'll see it come out. The dosing on it is 1 capful for every 50 gallons. Over here, we did get the St. Elmo's fire sword. So just as a little precaution, I'm going to give them a little. Now you can overdose on these things, and especially your flourish. A lot of your red root floaters, Salvini, things like that, they'll actually shrink up and they won't look great when you overdose on them. So keep in mind there is a balance here. Up next on my list of stuff I'm going to dose is going to be the Excel. It's a liquid carbon source. The primary use for this is going to be like an algicide. When you have that annoying blackbeard algae, staghorn algae you really can't get rid of, best thing to do is get a big syringe and just hit it directly. Takes a few days, but it will get rid of it. I'm not going to dose on our 300 because I'm actually using pressurized CO2 and it is an injection system. So there's no need for me to use it on here, but like I said, just as a precautionary, I am going to put it on our new system. And on this, with the dosing we're going to run, big capful is going to be good for 100 gallons. Now keep in mind too, with this, there are 2 different dosing instructions. One is your initial dose to bring the level up to where you want it, and then there's a subsequent dosing that is going to be a whole lot less. When you first dose it, it's going to be about 3 to 4 times what you would normally dose. Up next is going to be phosphorus, help keep the phosphates up. Main reason for dosing this is to help keep the deficiencies away and keep our plants healthy, make sure there's no yellow spots, there's no burning or anything on them. It will definitely help out. We're going to use that inner circle right there, and it's going to be good for, what was it, 200, 250 gallons. So just do that, because like I said, when we do feed, you are going to get some of that stuff in there. So there's no need to go overboard, because then you will have algae problems. And the big thing about this is we want to try to keep the balance so that way we don't have those algae issues. Alright, so the last thing I use is an amino acid, and it just helps them uptake the nutrients a little better. Think about this like the AB Plus in corals. And then with this, it's going to be about the same dosing. We're going to use the inside capful, except for that it is going to be for 40 gallons, if I'm remembering right. Almost forgot my favorite thing that I use is the Flourish Advance. It does actually help promote the root growth. Found this a couple years ago. I've been using it on my tanks at home and here for as long as I can. Me and Kat started moving the plants out of this tank and trying to organize things. These were plants that have only been here maybe a week, a little over, and we were pulling out dinner plate size of root mats. It's impressed me, and I'm going to continue to use this. And then on dosing on this, it's a capful for every like 40 gallons. I do not do that because there is everything else in here, and this is just something to help expedite that a little bit. You got to see what plants we got in, a light basic overview of our low light plants, a little bit of the high tech stuff, the introduction into dosing. If you do have any questions, leave a comment down below, message us on Facebook, message us on Instagram. We'll get back a hold of you. We'll try to answer it to the best of our ability. Should you want to see me and Chuck try to set up a display tank with a lot of low light stuff going on, let us know down below as well. And thanks for watching.